Have you ever felt tied to someone who keeps hurting you, even long after they're gone from your life? It's as if an invisible thread still connects your soul to theirs, a thread woven with pain, resentment, and unfinished emotions. No matter how much you try to move on, their presence echoes inside you, shaping your thoughts and draining your peace. This invisible thread is what the spiritualist Allan Kardec might have called a karmic knot, a bond forged not by love or purpose, but by the unresolved lessons between two souls. And though it may seem like a curse, it's actually an invitation, an opportunity to learn how to release, to forgive, and to rise beyond the cycle of hurt. To understand this, we first have to look at what Kardec really meant by karma and spirit ties. In his teachings, karma is not punishment, it's education. It's the universe's way of guiding the soul toward awareness through the consequences of its choices. When two souls meet and one harms the other through betrayal, manipulation, or cruelty, a vibrational link is created. This link persists beyond time and body, like a note that continues to ring even after the instrument has gone silent. We carry it forward, lifetime after lifetime, until understanding dissolves it. Kardec taught that the purpose of these bonds is not to trap us in suffering, but to awaken us to love in its highest form, the love that forgives and frees. Imagine your spirit as a vast fabric of light, woven with threads of every relationship you've ever had. Some threads shimmer with harmony and gratitude, others pulse with tension, anger, or sorrow. The karmic knot forms where two threads cross in pain, where understanding has yet to be born. This knot may appear in the form of recurring conflict, emotional dependency, or even irrational guilt towards someone you can't seem to let go of. It might manifest as constant thoughts about them, or as a subtle weight you can't explain. Kardec's wisdom reminds us that such experiences are not random. They are mirrors, reflecting what your soul still needs to see. But how do we release a knot that feels so deeply tied to who we are? Kardec proposed that liberation does not come from confrontation or revenge, but from magnetism of intention, from a conscious reorientation of energy through thought and prayer. He believed that every thought is a living force that travels through the subtle world. When we think of someone with hatred, we reinforce the tie that binds us. When we think of them with understanding, even if they've caused harm, we begin to untangle the thread. Forgiveness, in this sense, is not about approving their actions. It's about ceasing to vibrate at the same frequency as their shadow. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine holding a rope between you and that person. Each time you replay the pain, you pull the rope tighter. Each time you wish them ill, the rope burns your hands. But when you pause, breathe, and say inwardly, "I release you to your own path and I claim mine," the tension loosens. You're not erasing what happened. You're reclaiming your energy from the past. Kardec called this act fluidic liberation, a shift in the spiritual current that returns your strength to you. It's a silent ritual, performed not with candles or chants, but with the steady intention of peace. There is a certain paradox in this process. The more you try to cut the tie through anger or avoidance, the stronger it becomes. Resistance feeds it, while acceptance dissolves it. Kardec compared this to magnetism. Two forces repel only until their energies are harmonized. In spiritual terms, harmonization happens when we see the other person not as an enemy, but as a teacher who unknowingly offered us the lesson of boundaries, self-respect, or compassion. It's not about denying the pain. It's about transforming its meaning. When we do this, we start to see that forgiveness is not a gift to the other, but a medicine for ourselves. Some karmic knots are ancient. They may stem from lifetimes of repeated patterns, the same dynamics of control, abandonment, or dependency, replayed through different faces. That's why some connections feel inexplicably heavy or magnetic. Kardec wrote that when a spirit resists learning a lesson, life brings them back to the same scenario until understanding is reached. This is not punishment, it's grace disguised as persistence. The soul keeps meeting what it most needs to transcend. And in that meeting, we are offered a choice: repeat the cycle or awaken within it. Think of this as standing before a door that has no handle on the outside. You can push, shout, and fight against it, but it won't open. The only way through is from within, through stillness, through awareness. When you realize that your suffering is not a prison but a teacher, something shifts. The person who hurt you no longer holds power. The experience becomes a mirror of your own evolution. This is the spiritual alchemy Kardec spoke of, turning the lead of pain into the gold of wisdom. The first step, then, is observation. Notice your reactions when you think of that person. What emotions arise? What memories replay? Do you feel anger, pity, or longing? This awareness is not judgment, it's diagnosis. Kardec often emphasized that true healing begins with the lucid understanding of cause and effect. When you see your emotional reflexes clearly, you no longer feed them unconsciously. You begin to act from consciousness, not compulsion. And that awareness, subtle as it may seem, is already loosening the knot. As you begin to notice the subtle pull of that karmic knot, something profound happens. You start to understand that liberation is not about forgetting, but about seeing clearly. Allan Kardec often said that the spirit's evolution depends on its ability to transform pain into knowledge. The very experience that once chained you becomes the tool that opens your eyes. When you bring awareness to the pattern, the knot begins to unravel thread by thread. But to truly dissolve it, you must learn to work not only with memory, but with vibration, the invisible field of thoughts and emotions that you radiate every day. Kardec's studies of magnetism reveal that every human being is both a transmitter and a receiver of energy. When two souls share a bond, even a painful one, they remain connected by this invisible current. It's as if each thought you send becomes a wave that travels through the spiritual ether, reaching the other person on some level of existence. That is why, when you think obsessively about someone who hurt you, you feel drained. Your energy is literally traveling toward them, feeding the same cycle of attachment. Liberation then requires a reversal of direction. Instead of projecting outward toward the source of pain, you must learn to anchor inward to restore your own magnetic field. Kardec taught that one of the simplest yet most powerful ways to do this is through what he called fluidic reorientation, a meditative practice of conscious redirection of energy. He suggested that you sit in silence, breathe slowly, and visualize a light descending from the infinite, touching the crown of your head, then spreading gently through your entire body. Imagine this light as pure compassion, washing through every cell, every memory, every wound. Now imagine that same light extending toward the person who harmed you, not as a sign of approval, but as a way of neutralizing the heavy vibration between you. You might say inwardly, "May peace go where conflict once lived." In that moment, you are no longer bound by pain. You are becoming the observer, the alchemist of your own energy. It is essential to understand that this technique is not about suppressing emotion. Kardec was very clear that the path of the spirit is not denial, but transformation. If anger rises, let it rise. If sadness emerges, let it breathe. Each feeling is a message, a messenger of unintegrated experience. To release it, you must first allow it to be seen. Imagine each emotion as a knot within the larger knot, smaller threads that need your attention. As you witness them without judgment, the emotional charge begins to fade. The energy that was once trapped in resentment now becomes available for healing. This is not magic. It is natural law, the law of resonance that governs every exchange in the universe. The challenge, of course, lies in consistency. The karmic knot is often reinforced by repetition, years of mental replay, emotional identification, and attachment to the story of what they did to me. Kardec's approach invites us to shift from the story to the principle. Ask yourself, what lesson is my soul learning through this connection? Perhaps it is learning boundaries or patience or discernment. Perhaps it is learning to love without losing itself. When you identify the lesson, the entire narrative changes. The person who seemed like your tormentor becomes your catalyst, and what felt like a wound begins to reveal itself as initiation. Many people fear that forgiveness means weakness, that to forgive is to invite harm again. But Kardec's philosophy distinguishes clearly between forgiveness and submission. True forgiveness is lucid. It is the act of releasing resentment while maintaining wisdom. You do not need to keep someone in your life to wish them peace. In fact, genuine forgiveness often requires distance, because distance allows you to reclaim perspective. Think of it as stepping back from a tangled thread so you can finally see the pattern. Only then can you decide consciously which threads you wish to continue weaving. This concept resonates deeply with another truth Kardec expressed. Spirits are bound not by chains but by affinities. In other words, we attract experiences and people whose vibrations match our current state of consciousness. When we evolve, the magnet changes. We stop attracting pain because we no longer vibrate in resonance with it. That is why inner transformation is the only permanent solution to karmic entanglement. You cannot change the other person. You can only change the frequency that keeps you connected to them. And as you do, something subtle but extraordinary occurs. They either begin to change too, or they naturally drift away, as if the universe itself recognizes the lesson has been completed. Still, releasing a karmic knot is rarely instantaneous. It's more like untangling a delicate necklace. You loosen one section only to find another twist hidden beneath. This is part of the sacred rhythm of healing. Some days you'll feel clear and free. Others, the old emotions will resurface. Don't mistake this for failure. It's simply the final thread surfacing to be seen and released. Kardec reminded us that spiritual progress is gradual, and every sincere effort leaves a mark in the soul's vibration. Even the smallest act of compassion, a single moment of genuine goodwill toward someone who hurt you, radiates light through the web of your karmic history. There's also something profoundly empowering in realizing that you are not merely a victim of destiny. You are a co-author of your spiritual story. The karmic knot doesn't exist to imprison you, but to awaken you to your creative power. Each thought you choose, each feeling you honor, each boundary you establish rewrites the energetic contract between you and the past. Over time, this conscious participation transforms your inner landscape. The once chaotic field of resentment becomes a garden of peace, where love grows not as dependence but as presence. As you deepen this awareness, you might begin to sense a quiet shift. The face of the person who hurt you no longer stirs the same turmoil. Their name, once heavy, begins to sound neutral, even distant. That's the soul's sign that the knot is loosening, not because you've forgotten, but because you've understood. You have reclaimed your story. And when understanding replaces bitterness, the thread that once bound you starts to dissolve into light, preparing the way for something greater to emerge. When the knot begins to loosen, something mysterious unfolds, not outside you, but within. The silence that follows the storm is not emptiness, it's space. Space for new energy to flow, for clarity to return, for the heart to remember what peace feels like. Yet, this stage is delicate. The mind, so accustomed to the drama of attachment, may try to recreate it. It might whisper, "But what if they were right?" Or, "Maybe I deserved it." These are echoes of old vibrations, fragments of the knot that still seek attention. Allan Kardec often reminded us that spiritual healing is not linear. It moves in spirals, revisiting the same point from a higher perspective each time. The difference is that now you can see what once blinded you. At this level, the practice becomes less about the other person and more about you, your inner architecture, your patterns of reaction, the way you use energy. Kardec's philosophy aligns with a universal law. Every spirit shapes its own destiny through the quality of its thoughts. Your thoughts are not silent, they are creative. They sculpt the subtle body, influencing both the spiritual and physical states. So as you work to dissolve the karmic knot, you are also rebuilding the vibrational structure of your being. You are teaching your soul how to respond from love instead of reflex, from wisdom instead of fear. Imagine your mind as a river. For years, this river may have carried the same sediments of resentment, guilt, and longing. Even if you stop feeding it with new pain, the water may still appear murky for a while. It takes time for the current to clear. This is why patience is sacred in the work of liberation. Each day of awareness filters the water a little more. Each act of compassion purifies another layer. The river doesn't rush, it trusts the flow. And soon, its reflection becomes transparent again, revealing the light that was always beneath. Kardec spoke of a principle he called vibrational sympathy, the natural attraction between souls of similar frequency. This explains why certain relationships, no matter how painful, feel magnetic. They reflect aspects of ourselves we have not yet reconciled. To break free, we must evolve beyond the frequency that sustains the tie. In simple terms, we must stop resonating with what wounds us. This doesn't mean becoming indifferent. It means vibrating from a higher octave. Compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude are not moral ideals. They are vibrational technologies. When practiced sincerely, they change the energetic code of your consciousness. So how do we apply this in daily life? Kardec suggested a simple but profound exercise of energetic hygiene. Each night, before sleep, visualize every person you've interacted with that day. Notice if any encounter left you feeling heavy, defensive, or drained. Without judgment, breathe deeply and imagine a gentle light washing through the connection. Silently repeat, "I bless your journey and release you from mine." This small act, done regularly, prevents new knots from forming and accelerates the unraveling of old ones. The goal is not isolation but purification, to keep your energy field as luminous and fluid as possible, like clear water that reflects the divine. There's another dimension to this process that Kardec understood deeply: the law of reciprocity in healing. When you forgive someone, even silently, you are not the only one who heals. The other soul, consciously or not, receives that vibration. Sometimes they may even feel it as an unexplainable peace or change in their behavior. This is because the spiritual world operates beyond physical barriers. Thought travels through space faster than light. Its reach is immediate. Kardec's teachings remind us that sincere goodwill is one of the most powerful forces in existence. When you send love instead of hatred, you participate in the collective evolution of humanity. You become a transmitter of healing frequencies that ripple far beyond what the eyes can see. And yet the ego resists. It prefers justice to peace, vindication to understanding. It whispers, "They don't deserve forgiveness." But what if forgiveness was never for them? What if it was the key to your own release? Holding resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other to suffer. You imprison yourself in a story that no longer exists. Kardec taught that the spirit evolves not by being right, but by being free. Every time you choose to let go, even a little, you reclaim a fragment of your divinity. The soul that once lived in reaction begins to live in creation again. There's a subtle beauty in recognizing that every relationship, even the painful ones, has a sacred purpose. Some souls come into our lives to awaken tenderness, others to awaken strength. Some teach us what love is, others what it is not. But all are instruments of the same divine symphony, composed by a wisdom greater than our comprehension. Kardec believed that when we finally understand this, bitterness dissolves into reverence. We stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin to ask, "What is life revealing through me?" This shift in perception is the true beginning of freedom. If you could look at your soul as the spirits in Kardec's world do, you'd see a luminous being with threads of light extending in all directions, threads connecting you to countless others, each one shimmering with its own lesson. Some glow brightly, others flicker with unfinished emotion, but none of them are mistakes. Each is a chapter in your soul's education, a proof of how deeply you've dared to live, love, and learn. The karmic knot that once felt like punishment now appears as a sacred contract, one that you're finally ready to complete. This understanding doesn't erase the past, but it transforms it. The wound remains, but it becomes transparent, like a window instead of a wall. Through it, you begin to see the vastness of your own growth. You start noticing small miracles. Situations that used to trigger you no longer do. Memories that once burned now simply exist. You can look back without pain, and in that moment you realize the knot has not only been untied, it has been transmuted. Its energy has returned to source, purified by love. You are not the same person who began this journey. Something ancient has shifted inside you, as if your soul just exhaled after holding its breath for lifetimes. And now, as the final threads dissolve into stillness, a new kind of silence fills you, one that doesn't echo with the absence of someone else. but resonates with the presence of your own soul. This is the moment Allan Kardec described as the peace of moral harmony, when the spirit finally vibrates in alignment with divine law. It's not a triumph in the worldly sense. There's no applause, no grand revelation. It's quieter, more intimate. It's the simple awareness that what once held power over you no longer does. You feel lighter, not because the world has changed, but because you have. The karmic knot has become a thread of wisdom, woven gently into the tapestry of your evolution. In this stage, the energy once trapped in resentment transforms into compassion. It's as though the pain itself has ripened into insight. Kardec believed that forgiveness, true forgiveness, is the soul's highest intelligence because it proves that love can exist beyond the personal. You no longer forgive as a gesture of superiority or kindness toward another. You forgive because you understand the deeper mechanics of the universe. You see that everyone, including the one who hurt you, is bound by the same laws of cause and effect. Each action is a seed, each consequence its fruit. To hate the one who harmed you is to misunderstand the gardener's hand. Every soul sows according to its level of awareness and harvests in time what it has planted. This realization doesn't justify harm, but it liberates you from the illusion that anyone truly gets away with anything. In the spiritual order, all is balance. From this understanding arises a natural serenity. You begin to look at others differently, not as villains or heroes, but as travelers, each carrying their own invisible burdens. You recognize in their mistakes a mirror of your own forgotten ones, and in that recognition something beautiful happens. Judgment turns into empathy. You no longer feel the need to punish or to prove. You simply wish for all beings to awaken as you are awakening now. Kardec taught that when a spirit reaches this point, it becomes a beneficent magnet, radiating peace wherever it goes. Its mere presence begins to heal the world, not through words, but through vibration. Think about that for a moment, the idea that your inner work doesn't end with you. Every time you untie a knot of resentment, you lighten the collective field of humanity. You participate in the quiet revolution of consciousness. The peace you cultivate within yourself ripples outward, reaching places and hearts you'll never see. Kardec often compared human beings to lamps in a vast city of souls. When one lamp is lit, even a small one, the whole city grows brighter. You may never know whose darkness you've illuminated by simply choosing to heal, but the universe does. Every act of spiritual release is recorded in the subtle archives of creation, an invisible contribution to the evolution of all. And so, you start living differently. You speak more gently, listen more deeply, breathe more slowly. You begin to trust the flow of life again. The same circumstances that once felt unbearable now appear as part of a divine choreography. You realize that the people who crossed your path, the ones who challenged you, betrayed you, or broke you, were not obstacles, but initiations. They brought you to the exact threshold you needed to cross in order to remember who you truly are, a consciousness of infinite resilience, capable of turning suffering into light. The karmic knot wasn't a punishment. It was the gate to wisdom disguised as pain. But Kardec's wisdom goes even further. He invites us to not only understand this process, but to live it as a daily practice. The work of untangling karma never truly ends, because relationships are living energies, constantly forming, evolving, and sometimes fraying. Each day, life offers you small knots to loosen: an argument with a loved one, a harsh word from a stranger, a self-critical thought. In these moments you are given a choice: tighten the thread or release it. The enlightened path is not about avoiding tension, but about meeting it with consciousness. To live in awareness of every tie you create, that is the true spiritual discipline. The more consciously you live, the fewer knots you form, and the more radiant your soul becomes. There is immense freedom in realizing that you no longer need others to change in order to be at peace. You simply need to remain true to your own vibration. The one who once harmed you may never apologize, may never understand the depth of what you went through, but that no longer matters. You have reclaimed the narrative. You are no longer the wounded, but the witness. No longer the seeker of closure, but the embodiment of completion. Kardec called this the emancipation of the spirit, when the soul no longer depends on external conditions to experience harmony. You become your own source of light, and when you reach this space of freedom, gratitude naturally arises, not forced gratitude, but the kind that comes from seeing how perfectly everything served your growth. You might even feel thankful for the pain, not because it was fair, but because it was fruitful. It revealed your strength, expanded your compassion, and awakened your consciousness. This is the sacred paradox of karma. What once enslaved you becomes your teacher, and through understanding you become free. The knot unties itself not through effort, but through illumination. Now, imagine for a moment that you could meet the soul of the person who once caused you pain, not in the world of form, but in the luminous dimension that Kardec described, where spirits see each other beyond masks and memories. Imagine looking into their essence and recognizing that beneath all errors and illusions, they too are striving to evolve, just as you are. Would you still hold anger? Or would you feel a quiet compassion, knowing that in another time, in another life, you might have played their role? To see this truth is to awaken from the cycle of revenge into the cycle of love, the eternal rhythm of creation. And perhaps that is the real purpose of every karmic knot, to lead us back to this understanding, to remind us that love is not something we give or receive, but something we remember within ourselves. When we untie the bonds of resentment, we rediscover the divine thread that connects all beings, the thread that no pain, no time, no lifetime can ever sever. It is this thread that Kardec's teachings point to, the unbreakable link between spirit and spirit, between God and creation. So as you breathe now, feel that truth within you. The person who hurt you no longer defines you. The lesson has been learned, the circle completed. What remains is light, pure, calm, and endless. You are free, and in your freedom, you free others. This is the final gift of the karmic knot, the transformation of pain into purpose, of bondage into blessing. If these words resonated with your heart, let this be more than reflection. Let it be a vow to live with awareness, to forgive with wisdom, to love without fear. And if you feel called to share your own story of healing, leave it in the comments below. Your experience might be the thread that helps another soul begin to untie theirs. And remember, this journey of awakening continues. Subscribe, stay close, and let us keep walking together toward the light that never fades.